Hello, everyone, and welcome to Expat American. I am the Expat American, and today in this live stream, we will be talking with British men who have left Britain. Why are we doing this now? You know why we're doing this now. There are riots all over Britain. It is burning, you could say. Terrible tragedy. And I am not British, I'm American, and so I wanted to talk to three British guys and get their take on what's going on. We want to not waste your time. So without further ado, the first guy who is joining us is James. And if you are a regular viewer of my show, you've seen him a couple times. And he helped me consider doing this because I saw he has a video on his channel that's really good. The name of his channel is Unglued Brit. And we also have Sam from Sam's Russian Adventures.
Hi,
Sam,
everyone.
are you English?
I'm English, yeah.
Okay, so that's two English guys. Yeah. And then lastly, we have another Jim. This is the Scottish guy in Moscow. So he is Scottish. So first off, gentlemen, I'll just say as the outsider who's not a British citizen, what it looks like to me, and then I want you guys to take turns saying what you think, and please correct me if I'm wrong. But I follow the news a lot because I live in Russia. I follow a lot of British news because it's in English. And what it looks like to me is the past decade, Britain has been taking in a lot of immigrants, some illegal, I guess maybe many illegal, some sanctuary people. And I guess there have been lots of murders and stabbings of British citizens by the immigrants. And on top of that, I get from the news that British citizens feel like it is a two-tiered policing system where the police treat the immigrants with kid gloves, but they're very strict on the British citizens themselves. So that is what it looks like to me as an outsider. And I want to let you guys share now and just kind of give your summary of what you think's going on, and then we'll bounce off each other. And then I'm gonna start looking to the questions because we got people watching, and we definitely want to get to your questions. So Jim, why don't we start off with you, if we can? Jim is not with us. Okay. Oh, Jim. All right, Jim, why don't we start off with you?
Or not. Okay.
Jim, you with us? Okay, Jim, wave at me when you think you are ready, and we'll move on to Sam.
Oh, okay. What do you want me to answer? Okay, do I think there's a two-tier system with policing?
Well, you just tell me, what do you think? You're British.
So I just want to say that I'm actually in the banyo on Thursday nights. I go to the banyo with my friends, so that's why I'm naked. I'm not going to show you my whole body, but that's why I'm like this. Anyway, so the situation in the UK, obviously, there's a lot of immigrants over the last, probably same as the US, right? A lot of people have come in over the last 10, 20 years. I don't live there, so it's a bit of a different situation for me. But with regards to two-tier policing, the problem is, I don't think it's the fact that it's a really difficult one, because the culture in the UK is like, if you do something wrong, especially in this day and age with everyone's got cameras, right? If the police were to do something and try and arrest someone and they get slightly fall over or whatever, and they happen to be an immigrant, it'll cause an absolute nightmare. So the police themselves probably are wary when it comes to immigrants rather than British people, British citizens, because they're probably fearful that if they do, arrest someone and it goes bad and they fall over or whatever it is, then that's it, they're labelled. And in the UK, you're labelled. I think it's probably not just the police itself, it's probably whoever's running the police, they're in the same situation. If the police arrest somebody who's an immigrant and he falls over and hits his head, then the person in charge of the police is going to, well, whatever his name is, the boss, the police boss, I'm really bad with this stuff, he's going to lose his job, right? He's going to be accused of being racist. And so it's almost like in Britain, they're afraid of addressing the situation, especially with immigrants, because once you get labelled, that's it, it's game over. And so anyone that's got any clout, political clout, or in the police or anything like that, or in the media even, they won't even really address the problem, because even by addressing the problem, acknowledging the problem, it's basically saying someone will label them racist. And once you're labeled in the UK, that's it, game over. Lose your job, you don't have a future career, you don't, it's game over. So it's from the top down. Like a lot of people at the moment have been saying, oh, don't worry, this will be over in a couple of days. I'm thinking, no, maybe the riots will be over, but the situation will remain. But they're so good at labeling it, and they've labeled it right now a situation of the far right. Now, obviously, there's a load of idiots at the moment smashing stuff, right? But it isn't just a problem of them. Immigration is a big issue for almost everyone in the UK, but they've labelled it now as a far right problem. So normal people, just everyday people, Mr. Joe and Mr. Smith, or Mrs. Joe and Mr. Smith probably, they can't address the problem. They can't go to work in the morning and say, look, I think we've got a problem. They can't chat over the water cooler about immigration problem, because someone will turn around and say, well, I'm a son of an immigrant, and I feel, the way you're talking about it sounds like you're a fascist. And then the boss will come up to him and say, look, we've got a complaint from somebody saying that we feel that, you've created a fascist environment at work. And, you can't, so no one can address the problem, because they have labels for people that address the problem. So it's easier for everyone to kind of ignore it. And then when something blows up, they say it's a far right problem. It's just a few people that are unhappy and everyone else is fine. And that's the easiest way to do it, because everyone's scared to address it. That's basically what it is.
Okay.
I think. Anyway, that's my opinion. I don't know. Yeah, so it'd be interested.
No, that's a good start, Sam. I appreciate that. So Jimmy, how about you? What would be your start off summary of this situation?
Well, I agree with everything Sam said. Basically, he's bang on the money. To be honest, I mean, my general take on the situation really is that there was a point, especially when I was a young kid, where I do remember immigration then, and if I'm honest, most of it was absolutely fine. Like everyone just kind of integrated into the society, and there wasn't such division like you see today. I mean, I'm from Wolverhampton, and I see it for myself, and it seems that everyone's kind of split off into like little communities. There's no cohesive backbone to the nation anymore that there used to be. So, everyone's got different flags for this. Everyone believes this. And if you believe that, then you've got to hate them over there. And it's a little bit like that, I mean, when you're walking around the streets, you can, I was there last winter and I could just kind of smell it in the air. That's the only way that I can put it. It's something that you just feel the energy of, when there's a bunch of people that are just walking around the streets. You notice that there are certain groups that stick to their certain groups, and they are that group. And there's this group over there, and there's no kind of mixing, and you can see that there's a clear division in the society at the moment. And I also think that it's one of those things, because if we go back to, say, the year 2001, where, of course, as you're well aware, Joseph, there was the 9/11 attacks. At the time, we had Tony Blair, who was in power, and we followed George Bush into just about every war in the Middle East. And of course, that's caused a lot of ideological hatred amongst a lot of people in the Middle East against British people in general. So, basically the government policy was, okay, let's just open the door because GDP figure goes up. So therefore, it's absolutely fine. As long as we're bringing people in, GDP bar goes up, like the economy's great. And it's a very strange, bizarre way to run economic policy. But then that opened the door up for anybody, people that we didn't even know, people that didn't even have identification, that just basically told the government, hey, can we come in, please? I am Adam Smith and I'm a 14-year-old. And it's like, okay, come on in. And the problem that we
okay, Jimmy, why don't we let Jim speak now, because he only has a few minutes and it looks like his connection might be working. Jim is from Scotland. Jim, what is your summary of the situation?
Yeah, sorry guys, I'm on.
I think Jim won't be
Can you hear me, Joe?
Reasons for moving to Russia.
I can hear you, man.
Right, okay. I don't know what's wrong with my Wi-Fi. It usually works. So people in that the riots are mostly happening in England. Scotland does seem to be a little bit different, but I think that the majority of people do still feel the same. You know, you're being taxed. The average person is being taxed. I mean, the cost of living and the tax that people are paying, people just can't afford. The average person can't afford to get by in the UK. And how they're perceiving it is that the normal person can't get by, but we will literally let anyone into the country. Now, I just done a video today actually talking about how for me to come and live in Russia, I've got to have a job, got to have a criminal record check, an HIV check, a drugs test each year. Except not from immigration and letting people into the country, but letting people in that are not productive, because who pays for it? The middle earner. The middle earner, such as a school teacher, is being taxed as much as 46% just on their income, not to mention council tax, road tax, VAT, all the rest of it, everything else that you're paying as well. So I think people have just had enough. And I don't see it as being it's not a racist thing. The problem in the UK, I've lived in Russia, I've lived in Serbia before I came to Russia. People in the UK are terrified of being labelled as racist, homophobic, etc., because they'll lose their job, they'll lose their livelihood. And so what happens is everyone...
Oh, man.
It's okay, Sam. It happens.
It's not...
So looks like we have lost Jim, guys, meaning his connection is no good. But there are two things that I made a note of that I wanted to ask you two about based off of what Jim said. And he mentioned that the riots are mostly in England. And he mentioned that some of the immigrants are not productive. So I guess like not working, not contributing to British society. So either of you, well, Sam, why don't you comment first on this? Is this the thing?
It's a difficult one because obviously, as Jimmy actually said, so a lot of the immigrants that come here, you know, they come from countries that probably Britain helped destroy. So when they come here, perhaps they're not the most happy. It's not like, oh, we came to Britain because we love Britain. They probably come here pretty angry, to be fair. Probably happy that they've got to Britain because their country's hell now and they, you know, are glad to be in Britain. But at the same time, it's not like they feel that they should be grateful to Britain. A lot of people probably come here and think, you know, well, I don't know what I should say on I don't want to get your channel blocked. But
don't say it, Sam.
So they're probably not the most grateful people when they arrive, right? But at the same time, you know, are they productive? A lot of them are in hotels because they're coming to the UK illegally. So at the moment, they're just being housed. And I think that's more of the situation at the moment is that because they're being housed, a lot of people are struggling in the UK. They've got cost of living is really high. The cost of rent, people can't get on the housing ladder at all. There's so many people living a really bad situation, and at the same time they see immigrants as having a free ride and living in hotels. That's how they see it. Now, obviously, immigrants probably think, I want to escape this hotel and start living my life, maybe. But I think also the fact that they don't integrate is so in the 50s, so like, after the Second World War, right, people would come to the UK, and the law itself and the kind of public opinion was really behind being British, right? So obviously, that's in bad in a way, because obviously there was probably huge racism and it was accepted. But because of that situation, because of that's the way the UK was, immigrants wanted to adapt and to become part of Britain, to feel British. Whereas now, at this age, at the same time, obviously we've got culture that is now, what's the word I'm looking for? Accepting of everyone, right? But at the same time, that doesn't need them to integrate, right? Because they can just come and, and I don't want to put a label and say everyone's like that, because obviously it's not true. But I think the main problem with immigration is, but before, people would want to integrate and kind of become like British and be seen as, British, but whereas now it's easier, I guess. If you come to, if I moved to Russia and there was a mini England in Moscow, I could go live there and just be with all the Brits. Right?
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, wow, we lost Sam suddenly and without warning. Jim, I know you have to leave in a few minutes, so you want to try and give us some parting words?
Yeah, man. Sorry about the signal, but hopefully you can hear me now.
I think you're great now.
Pretty much what I just said. I don't know how much you got and when I got cut off, but I think it is just the frustration is built up, and it's not. Obviously, there's always going to be a racist element in it anywhere you go, but I don't think the majority of that is. I think it's the frustration of times are hard in the UK, things are expensive, and people are being taxed highly. And where's all the money going? Where is the money going? By all means, let people into the country, but let people in that are being productive and they're bringing skills that we don't, or the UK doesn't have, and make sure the checks are done correctly as well. So, of course, it's never a good idea to go smashing places up, and I don't condone that whatsoever. But I think people will be punished heavily. I was reading today in the news that people are being punished with heavy prison sentences for what they've done, so they probably have regretted their actions. But I don't see how it can be fixed. I don't see how that. I think I heard Sam saying that yeah, the riots will stop, but the feeling's going to be the same. The sentiment's going to be the same. It's just that people are now going to be scared to express it. It feels like in the UK, if you express anything other than left-wing ideology, then you're punished for it. So we'll just have to wait and see. It just makes me quite glad that I'm here, and I don't need to be living under that government back home in the UK.
Does you living in Russia have anything to do with UK problems, or these, obviously you've been here for 9 months and the riots just started, but is there a connection to your personal life with this?
Well, I mean, I just don't really like the way the country's run. I know I keep talking about tax, but I can't believe it's not until you leave you realise how much you're paying for everything in the UK and how much you're being taxed from your income. We've got things like the NHS, but you call up and you can't even see a doctor. But you're half your salary almost is getting taken from you to pay for these things that are meant to be. So when I was growing up, I thought, oh yeah, it's so good that you get to see a doctor for free and blah blah blah. It's not for free. It's free for the people who don't contribute, because the people who don't work and they don't pay any tax, it's free for them, but it's not free for the person that's paying all the tax. So Yeah, I mean, it's not the only reason I'm here. I came for the job, I came for the lifestyle, many things, but it just reinforces the fact that I made the right decision when I see what's happening, because the people there that don't agree with what, with the immigration and the taxation, etc., they're powerless to do anything. And obviously they're rioted, which is wrong, but they're just absolutely powerless. And now the Labour government's in, I don't see it becoming any better for the average working person. So I don't really know where that leaves them, other than they've got no recourse whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, someone left a comment while we were talking. You can't blame them for leaving, I guess, meaning you guys. Australia and New Zealand are full of Brits. So it's an interesting comment because, I mean, we are all for people who have left the country we were born in. And like you were just saying, Jim, it kind of opens your eyes when you get out to another place. And like I start comparing Russia to America and how America was and what I was taught while living in America. And then I get to Russia. It's like I can kind of look back and look at both. And like you step outside of yourself in a way and you see what's really going on. And I think it's a great thing if anyone can, move, at least even temporarily, to kind of shake themselves loose and understand the world internationally. It's a really good thing. I know you have to go, Jim. Before you do, Jimmy or Sam, do you guys want to say anything to him or ask him anything or say goodbye?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, it's interesting that we have the same opinion, I think all of us, on the fact that people can't say anything. Like the video I made about a week ago was that the UK is almost like the Soviet Union in the way that people had one opinion they could talk about at home and another opinion that they could say on the street. And you cannot question things. When I was back in the UK, I was kicked out of a bar for speaking to a friend and asking if people in the 80s knew that Freddie Mercury was that way inclined. That's all I said. I didn't say anything bad. I just asked what do you think, with the height of his fame, did the general public know about his, because it's not really the rock image. I was kicked out of a bar, kicked out for being, that way. I was like, what? That's crazy. And, I was labeled, even, people would come up to me and say, you're the one that got kicked out. I'm like, what? Like insane. So you're not allowed to say things. And I think that's probably the hardest thing, is the fact that people have got opinions. It cannot be solved. It's impossible to be solved, because no one can stick their neck out and say anything, all the way from the prime minister all the way down to just the average person. No one can say what they think, because they'll be labeled. And even now they're labeling this as a far right situation that will soon be solved. The people will be put in prison. That's it. It's finished. That's not it. It's not finished. Those people that are smashing stuff, a bit crazy, right? But there's a few people, and at the moment, the media as well. The media are doing a very good job of interviewing the clueless people, the people that don't really understand. Like they'll interview someone that's. I saw someone get interviewed the other day, and they're like, "Yeah, I hate all people that are Asian and black." And it's like, "Well, why do you hate them?" He's like, "Well, because they're all bad." And it's almost trying to make out that, look, if you're for this immigration problem, then you're stupid. You're blah blah blah. They just want to label people, and it's the worst thing. So now it's labeled as a far right issue. And that's
I
it.
see.
So no normal person can say no, they don't agree. Otherwise, they're a fascist, right?
So Jim, stick your hand up if you got to run. Jimmy, you want to ask him anything or say anything to Jim before he takes off?
I want to know where Jim's going.
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. Yeah, where are you going, Jim?
Got to go meet my girlfriend. So sorry, guys. As much as I'd love to stay chat to you guys all night, but
the old girlfriend excuse.
Well, mate,
no, he said it was. He said it was start. Joe said it was starting at 8:45. So I said to her, "Wait, come at 9:30." So yeah, I got to go. But
no
thanks
problem,
for having
man.
me on.
So,
appreciate it.
So guys, check out Jim's channel, Scottish Guy in Moscow. You can see it on the screen there. And he and I have done a couple of videos together that I put in the description. Actually, all of you guys have done 2 videos with me apiece. Wow. And they're all listed in the comments section, in the description of this video. Thanks so much, Jim.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Good to meet you,
Bye.
mate.
All right. So James, I remembered you didn't get to share about what Jim had said. He mentioned that the riots are only happening in England, that the immigrants might not be productive. So those are the two things that popped in my head that he shared. What do you want to say about that, or anything that he shared?
Well, it is a fact that is the case, and it's just purely because, again, now just like Jim was saying, of course, when we do come into Russia, Russia makes sure that we are vetted. The visas that we come in are like bang on. So, of course, I came into Russia to work. I came on a work visa. Therefore, I must work. Otherwise, see you later. It's no problem for them. I could be gone tomorrow if I just decided to stop working. But no, in the UK, it's absolutely fine. They can just show up, go to a hotel. Well, in fact, they get put in a hotel. And, they're given money, they're given a debit card, and, it's not from the government. We're all paying for it. The working man of the UK is paying for that to happen. And no one voted on it. I mean, the thing is, they call the UK a democracy, which I think is laughable. Nobody asked for this. Nobody wants it, really. If you look at, just look at polls, for instance. Yet, it just keeps happening, and we just keep paying for it. And it's like the taxes go up, my mother's pension goes down, and it's like, hang on, we've still got to pay for that. How's this fair on anyone? So it's like that's my kind of take. I thought, you know what? Is this the kind of country I want to bring my kids up in? I don't think so. And luckily, I came over here, and it turns out that we don't really have those problems. So it's fantastic to be in a place where that's not going to happen. At least, goodness, it's mental. That's all I can say on the matter.
Right. Is this part of the reason why you're living in Russia? This situation that is now boiling over in Britain?
Well, partly. I mean, it really, for myself, it's more of a matter of just seeing how the cards would take. So, for instance, I saw years ago, I mean, we're talking a long time ago now, and it really did start to settle in, I'd say, during the coronavirus period, when that all happened. Because the thing is, I realised at that point when all of that was kicking off, I realised, hang on, right, I've just been left on my backside, basically. I have no job, I have nothing to do, and I have nothing to lose. So when a man's got nothing to lose, what do? Well, you either turn to alcohol or you just go traveling. So that's exactly what I did. I decided, pack my bags. I went and lived in Tbilisi for a year. And then all of a sudden, I realized, hang on, actually, I do want to go to Moscow and start a life there, because as soon as I got here, literally day one, I was like, this is the place that I want to live in. And it's one of those places, again, when you see that the infrastructure just works in Moscow, and the taxes are certainly a lot lower, and also you pay next to, I wouldn't say next to nothing, but you pay certainly a lot less for utilities. I mean, it's nice to have savings at the end of the month for a start, because, in the UK, for me, myself anyway, it's like I found that even in the same line of work, the ability to afford a house, the ability to even pay your gas and electricity and your council tax and the water and the lot, and have the TV license man knocking on the door while you're hiding behind the curtains hoping he doesn't see you. You know what I mean? All of these things add up. And you realise as soon as you leave, it's like the financial chains come off, because everyone says, there's no freedom in Russia. Well, guess what? You know what? Go out in the streets with zero money in Britain and see how free you are then. Because there are serious financial chains, I would call them, in the United Kingdom, and it's just nice not to have to put up with that anymore. And once you've got a taste of it somewhere else, you realise, I couldn't go back there. I couldn't go back there and play that game again. Goodness, I had to work ridiculous hours to pay the bills. It was
right.
it was no life. There was certainly no work-life balance. That's all I can
Now,
say.
Sam, what about you? Are you living in Russia instead of Britain because of Britain's cultural decay, we could perhaps say, or no?
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of disappoint the topic of the video a little bit, but I kind of moved here just because I liked Russia. So I've been here for like 20 years, and I didn't move here because I hated Britain. Actually, like, it's weird when I go back to Britain, it's changed a lot, and it's I feel like a guest there, almost like I'm on holiday, and so I don't really feel the issues really. But like, yeah, I moved here just because I like Russia, and not because I wanted to escape the UK. Obviously, the UK has changed a lot, right? So when I moved here, it wasn't really like that. When I look back, I see things with nostalgia of how things were when I lived there. But obviously, in 20 years' time, when I go back, everything's changed, and all my friends are older and stuff. So it's not the same place that it was when I was there. I know that a lot of people, like Jimmy just said, when he came here, he found that all these great things about Russia. You know, I know a lot of YouTubers will say that they moved to Russia because of these things. I think obviously it makes for good content, but I think more likely people realize these things once they're here rather than moving here for those things. But obviously, yeah, it makes for a better video if you say you moved here for those reasons, right? But obviously, those things are true that Jimmy said. They are true, and when people come here, they realize that Russia's completely different. I think so. Russia also had immigration problems, but the issue with Russia is, well, the thing with Russia is when people come here, they try to fit in with Russia. People, Russians are very proud of their country, and so as are Brits. But here, you come in and you won't be walking down the street protesting and saying, "I don't like Russia." Well, leave then. People will say, "Well, just go," and they'll kick you out. Basically, if you don't like it, go. You chose to come here, right? If you don't like it, go. And and people want to kind of fit in, right? People want to get on the ladder and get a job and get residency, get citizenship. They want to. There's more of a goal to do that. I think it's weird because immigrants, if you lived in a country that was crap, you'd want to move somewhere that was better, right? So you can't kind of like blame the people for wanting to go somewhere better. But in Russia, yeah, you come here, and the people that come here, they want to assimilate into society. They want to learn the language. They want to, and if you don't, like all of us will probably get comments on our YouTube channel from people that don't even realize we really love Russia. Right? And they'll say, if you're going to be crap, leave here. You're like, well, I'm not being crap. I'm being nice. Because that's kind of the mentality, right? You either come and you join in, you fit in, and you contribute, or you go. And here, I wouldn't say, I think the mentality is here as well. Look, if I was protesting on the street and the police grabbed me and I fell over, hit my head, well, it's my fault protesting on the street. That's the difference. They're not scared to enforce, the law, right? So,
Right.
Yeah. So,
well, Sam, you gave me some ideas because I was thinking, what it looks like to me is a culture clash that's going on. Two different cultures now in one country, and I've been thinking, well, maybe this means the world can't really be multicultural. But then, in Russia, like you said, there are many cultures, and they seem to be living together peacefully. So I'm not trying to make a point here. These are just my raw thoughts, just what I've been thinking about. And I remember, and I've shared this story before, that when America was a younger country, it still is a young country, right? They had lots of immigrants, and Henry Ford had lots of employees from other countries, and they would have these big meeting hall like celebrations where the person would walk up on stage in the dress of their country. They'd go behind a curtain and come out the other side dressed as an American. And there was this big emphasis on becoming an American, because the idea was, we're a new country. We're full of people from other places. We've got to, in a healthy way, brainwash ourselves into realizing that we are one culture. We need to all be pointed in the same direction. And so if Britain or any country has lots of immigration and they're not being taught, you know, that we're all part of the same culture now, you know, what we see happening is not a big surprise, I would think. So I'm definitely like open-minded and undecided on, can a place be multicultural or not? And my question, I guess, to you guys is, you know, does Britain have two irreconcilable cultures in it right now? What do you
So
got?
can I answer, because I'm going to have to go in a couple of minutes because I'm in that banyan is going to close and I have to have a shower.
Yeah. You go ahead, and then we'll let you
all
split.
my friends are behind the wall getting changed. I can hear them all. You know, they're already getting changed. So basically, what America didn't have at that point was wokeness and political correctness. And that's the stumbling block. And obviously, there are great things to implement into society. Political correctness and wokeness. Well, probably, especially political correctness, right? You can't go up to someone, call them a racist name, right? You've got to, you know, you got to behave correctly with people. But then it's gone out of control. Just as like I compare it to the Soviet Union when they tried to make the reforms, it went out of control and the country collapsed. Now, I'm not saying the UK is going to collapse, but people, you can't enforce things like the British identity. You can't enforce that because someone will say, well, I want to be that, and if you say that, I'm racist, and if you say that to me, then I'm going to tell everyone that you're racist and you'll lose your job. So you can't. So the way the UK is now, the same as I saw. We were actually discussing with my mates in the banyo a few minutes ago, just as with the Olympics and the, you know, people that are transgender fighting, boxing against people that are non. And I'm sure pretty much everyone watches that and thinks that's ridiculously unfair, it's stupid. Maybe they should have a special Olympics for transgender people, right? And sure, that's most of the people think that and think that's completely unfair, it's stupid. But you can't say that. Otherwise, you're anti whatever that is. And I think that's stopping people from having a British identity. What is the British identity? If you say something that's the British identity is fish and chips, well, people say, well, I'm from where I'm from, fish and chips is a bad thing, and I'm against that. And therefore, if you think I should eat fish and chips, you're racist. So you can't, you know, and if you're racist, then, you know, and you can't come to our gym. Sorry, you can't come to gym. Why? Because someone told you you're racist there, and she doesn't feel comfortable with you training next to her because you're racist. All right, okay. And then you go to a job and someone, you know, you lose everything. You can't have an opinion. The only opinion you can have is the opinion that, you know, that other people have, and therefore we can't have an identity. We can't have, you know, people can't coexist, because even if somebody of race does something wrong, they can't be told off for it because then they'll be racist. So it's just impossible, right? So that's basically what's happened. The woke culture has gone out of control. You know, I love to watch old Crime Watch UK stuff. I don't know if you see the Crime Watch UK from the 90s and the 80s and stuff. And it's really weird to see her. And this lady was a tramp, and she was a wino and stuff like that. And it's really interesting to see the stuff they say. And it's nothing really bad about it, but you can't say things in the UK anymore. And it's good that you can't say some stuff. It's good, but at the same time, that the fact that, as I say, just wokeness and political correctness has spiraled out of control, and that stops now any action from being taken, basically. And so that's why people can't integrate. There's no need for them to integrate. It's easier to come to the UK and say, I hate UK, I hate everything about it, and that's fine. And you can't turn around to them and say, well, why are you coming here? They say, well, what? You're being racist. You know, it's like, well, so yeah, you can't. That was an extreme example, right? You know, as I said in my video that I made about this topic, all my friends, so I don't really have, actually, I only have white friends in Russia. So in the UK, all my friends are like first generation immigrants or second generation. But even them, they're more vocal about this than anyone else, because they can be vocal because they're of color, right? So they can speak about it because no one can say anything to them because they can say what they want because they're not white. So it's just interesting. Yeah, you know, I could talk about this topic all night, but I'm going to have to go and have a shower.
Sure, man. James, you want to say anything to Sam before he has to go? You have any questions or any thoughts?
Sam, absolute pleasure to meet you, mate. And
I
do hope we perhaps do a collab at some other point as
definitely.
well.
I'm up for that, 100%.
Fantastic.
We can do why we hate Americans, especially Joseph. It'll be the topic of our video.
Specifically Floridians.
No sign on it, like a, yeah.
These
Okay.
So guys,
Floridians.
watch Sam's channel. It's
Yeah.
Sam's Russian Adventures, and you are
Unsubscribe from
just like
everyone else
4
and just
hours
follow
away
me.
by train north of Moscow, right, Sam?
Northeast, yeah, Moscow, yeah.
Okay,
So
great.
cool. So make sure you follow me, unsubscribe from everyone else, and follow me. And send me like hundreds of pounds if you want. It's completely fine. I'll spend it wisely. All right, I'm being stupid. All right, I'm going to go.
All right, man.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.
See you later.
See you. Bye. Bye, mate.
So I put a comment on the screen. If everyone leaves, then they win. Their invasion succeeds. So what does this mean, James?
I think personally we've got to go back a little bit to think about what's going on. And firstly, in fact, I do want to just bring up a quote that was actually mentioned by Andrew Tate the other day. If you put black ants in a jar and red ants in a jar, they do not fight. Okay. But however, if you shake the jar, they start killing each other, strangely. So the question that we've got to ask ourselves is who shook the jar? Okay. So the thing is, it always boils down to, again, now, who opened the door? At the end of the day, to some degree, you can't blame anybody coming into the country. They're opportunists, right? Like we all like to take opportunities in life if they're going to be profitable, of course. So they're only thinking in a humanistic way. Like, opportunity, money, go, of course, naturally. Come on, like we're all humans at the end of the day, aren't we? So, but at the same time, someone's keeping that door open and saying this is available to them. So the problem that we've got on the streets in England at this present moment in time is that you've got these groups fighting these groups, those groups over there fighting those groups. And then what happens as a result? Well, the government are allowed to get away with murder, basically. They're going to be passing the most totalitarian measures on the British public, specifically the British natives. They're really going to go after them after all this, like with facial IDs, digital IDs, you name it, like they're going to lay the full lockdown of the law. And, I might be wrong about this one, but I have a theory in my head. Now, the British military have really struggled in recent decades. Now, this is just a theory, it just came out of my head the other day. I thought, maybe. But the British military just haven't been able to make the figures for recruitment because it seems nobody wants to fight in these wars because they're not really protecting their own country. And I think most people know it. Now, these rioters, a lot of them, now, Keir Starmer came out the other day and said, hey, if we catch you rioting and we arrest you, you're going to go down in one of our 24/7 courts, rapid courts, for 5 years for rioting. So now, if I was a tyrant, such as Keir Starmer or Tony Blair, what would I be thinking? I'd be thinking, we can't make up the conscription figures. We've got all of these people in prison that wanted to fight for the country. Throw them in. And I think that could be on the cards. Now, I might be completely wrong, but, there's been times when these kind of thoughts just come out of thin air to me. And I'm like, they would do that. They probably planned that. And I'm usually right. So I think that there's going to be a level of that, sadly. So, it's one of those things that we're kind of in a situation at the moment where at the same time, everyone's fighting each other, everyone's divided, and just like in Roman times, divide and rule, divide and conquer. All the population's divided, all of the population hate each other. So when it comes to going against the government that are doing all of these bad things to them, no one can unite because they all hate each other. It's a fantastic scheme. It dates back to Roman times and the people still haven't learned.
Very good. That's interesting you say that. So you're basically not really taking a side in this issue, a British citizen versus immigrant. You're saying that it could be government corruption and manipulation, like an Emperor Palpatine type of situation.
There could be. I know it definitely. Yeah.
Very.
Nice.
So for sure, you're convinced. And so if that's the case, I mean, it would be good for everyone, on this island to, to understand that and understand what the real problem is. Very interesting. So, well, but what would you and I say to the person who said, because we left our country, the invasion succeeds? That is your answer. That to not think, to not even think in those terms, because that's the way they want us to think.
So I needed to build this foundation before answering that. Yes.
Sure.
So now, so in terms of it, that's the thing with this invasion. Again, the problem is, people are directed at fighting each other. Poor humans are directed at fighting more poor humans, and they're just killing each other and stabbing each other. And the government are still opening the door. The door's still open because nobody can unite and go against Westminster. Therefore, and it happens every time. It seems that people just want to play around in the muck rather than actually go after the real criminals in Westminster. What if overnight, imagine the whole of the country united as one? Everyone shook hands and said, hey, you know what? We're going to be friends now. We're going to follow this one path now. And what if everybody in the country just united and said, you know what, we're not going to pay council tax anymore. We're just going to stop this month. We're just not going to do it, all of us collectively. What are they going to do, arrest us all? Absolutely not. But the thing is, again, they are so divided and they have these deep-rooted hatreds of one another now that, unfortunately, it's, again, these riots, again, they will be over and someone will have killed someone and someone will have killed someone. And, again, the same people will still be in power. The same people will still be pushing the more controlling, more authoritarian laws onto them as a result of this. In fact, they've already mentioned it in the news, what they're going to do as far as blanket bans on social media, censorship campaigns, and all these sorts of things. And, they're just turning people against the British public. So, why would I want to, again, raise my kids in a society where they are going to be fundamentally hated, and they might be attacked because they've been called thugs by the Prime Minister? Like it pretty much is the whole demographic with thugs. We're to be hated. Why would I want to raise my daughter in a society like that? I do not think so. And that's the thing. We're the ones working. We're the ones giving. We're the working man and woman of the country. So it's like, why are we working for these criminals? At the same time, we're always paying taxes, PAYE and whatnot. We're always paying taxes to these people year in, year out. What if the productive working class just got up and then packed their bags and just went somewhere else overnight, all of them? What if that happened? Suddenly, the government will be on their knees begging, oh, please come back. We need someone paying the taxes for this weird system that we've got. And that's the thing. I think it's beyond the pale now. I think it would be better, if I'm honest, if it did go into that state where all of a sudden it's like, oh my life, all the productive working class have actually walked away, because at the same time, it's one of those things where you've got to go where you're treated best. And the thing is, it's nothing new. It's nothing new for us to go to other places. I mean, the Brits went to America, the Welsh went to Welsh Patagonia in Argentina because of persecution of their religion. I mean, it's nothing new for people to do this. And if the productive working class goes somewhere, strangely enough, they'll just build something. They'll build a new thing elsewhere. And, maybe in years to come, when the country is on its knees, which it certainly is on the way to at this present moment in time, it will be at some point, then we'll come back at some point maybe, or our kids will, and then they'll build something because there'll be something to build out of the ashes. So that's the main principle. It's sad to think about, but you've got to stare reality in the face.
Right. Yeah, I think my answer to that question, like, should people leave or not, is I don't think you're wrong to leave or to stay. For a Western country, it's not doing well. Let's say like America or Britain, for example, or you could go on and on. France, Germany. Is if you're trying to raise children, if you're asking me, you should probably leave, because you should support your country. You should help your country. You want your country to do better. But the average Western country right now, it's going to be like 30 years before it gets better, if it gets better. I mean, these things take a long time to degrade, and they're going to take a long time to improve, I think, So if your kids are adults and they don't live with you anymore, or if you're a young person and you're not going to have kids for a little bit, then you probably should stick it out and you should probably help your country. But if you got kids, you probably need to get on to greener pastures if you can find them. Jimmy and I have found it in Russia. And if you're new to this channel and you don't know about Russia, watch some of my videos, watch some of his videos. You'll be shocked. There is a normal place out there with traditional family values. And that's a question on the screen. Exactly where is it safe to go? I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Jimmy, or if I pretty much covered it.
Yeah, I mean, with that one, so exactly. So where is it safe to go? Now, it's one of those things in life where, again, it's like the thing is, again, in my country, again, when I was a single man who wasn't married, didn't have a kid or anything like that, I just saw what was going on, with all of the LGBT business in schools and, all of the kids getting groomed and stuff like that. And it really did make me think, whilst I was in England, honestly, I couldn't have a kid here because I would be so worried about letting them just walk to school. Like, why should I live in that fear? So now, where is safe to go? To answer it straightforwardly, that's kind of up to you to find your perception. Now, it depends on your version of safety, what you're looking for, because people are looking for safety for different reasons. Now, for instance, where I am, to be honest, it seems perfectly safe to go to send your kids to school by themselves and expect everything to be okay. At least I hope that I'm right with that one. So, there is that, and it's a very child-friendly, family-friendly, and family-oriented society here. Now, the thing is, you've also got other places on planet Earth too. There are a lot of Eastern countries that, again, don't really subscribe to what the West is doing at the moment, and are more grounded in tradition and family values. So, there are many options for a lot of people. And the best thing I can say really is do your research. But from what I can see, for me, I can't speak for everybody, but from my experience at this point in time, and from what I noticed when I was living in England, I can't do that life anymore. I can't, because it's just impossible to possibly get on in that society. I mean, and if it's not that, it's the fact that I'm never going to own a house. Goodness. I mean, it's nice to live in a country where I actually have a chance of owning a house maybe one day. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Right. And actually, guys, Jimmy and I did a video where we filmed in Moscow and in London. So if you're not familiar with both these places, that's in the description. So you can check that out and watch us there. There is one comment or question. It's a little bit funny. Someone asked, wasn't my mother British? So you're probably referring to the fact that I have said before, I am genetically 50% British. That is on my mother's side, but she was also born in America. So no, I'm not. I wouldn't be able to get British citizenship with that. So yeah, I mean, I had lots of thoughts, Jimmy, and you kind of, and guys, make sure and leave us questions if you have questions. So this is where I'm looking for audience question participation part. But you kind of derailed a lot of my thoughts, because you brought up a very good point for us to think about this in terms of, perhaps government control, because you can be down on people that are British citizens that are destroying property, but then you can also say, well, these are blue collar guys, and what do they know? They feel like they have no other way to speak out. If you cannot vote, in a way that is significant, and things just keep getting worse and worse and worse, you know. But like you said, you know, these are ants in a jar, you know.
Well, this is the thing about this whole idea of Britain being a democracy. Sorry to interrupt, but
Please, I was going to ask you, what does that mean? Is Britain a democracy or not? Because a lot of people don't know.
well, you know what? I'm not going to shake my head. I'll just put this to you. What percentage of the population voted for the party in charge, the Labour Party? Can you guess?
Well, nobody, right?
17% of the population, just over 1/5.
Wait, I thought that they put someone in charge, but they actually voted for somebody?
Well, they put the party in charge, but the thing is, bearing in mind that only 17% of the population of the United Kingdom are eligible to vote.
Wow.
17% of the population
Are legal to vote.
Yeah, so of course you had a lot of people that didn't show up because people are just so tired and just can't be bothered with it anymore. Fair play to them. But that's the thing. You just think about that for a minute. Hang on. 17% of people voted for this party that tell 100% of people what to do. Yeah. Like, come on. Come on. that doesn't sound very democratic to me. I don't know about you, but
so just so I understand, you're saying of eligible voters, only 17% voted for this party. And then, and then I was thinking, you guys don't really vote for who's in charge because you're voting for the party, and then the party picks the leader. Is that right?
Absolutely. And, you know, it's a very strange situation because it's not that the Labour Party won. It's basically that the Conservative Party collapsed, and rightly so, to be honest. Like, I think we're all happy with that. But at the same time, that they won because these people lost. So people are in a situation in the UK where it literally does feel like voting for your favourite disease. Which disease do we want in power for the next 5 years?
Right.
You know, and it's literally at that point. But coming back to the riots a bit, this is what worries me now because, for instance, we've got this Reform Party in the UK, and they are like the alternative. You know, people can debate it, whatever, but they kind of are. But of course, they are the more conservative party, if that makes sense. Now, people, of course, went out to vote in their droves. Now, this party was just pretty much just got, well, about 1 million more votes than the Liberal Democrats. Yet the Liberal Democrats got, I think it was 50 odd seats, something like that. And it was around about, I think it was 4 or 5 seats for Reform. So that goes to show you, again, even though the system's built in such a way that only the 2 biggest parties will ever win, but the 2 biggest parties only ever do the same thing anyway. So, you know, like the agenda that you got last year is the agenda that you're going to get next year in the UK. So it's like, we want change. And this is why the riots are going on. Because, again, when you've got it doesn't matter how much you vote, it doesn't matter how much you debate, when you're constantly getting told to shut up all the time because you've got opinions that don't match the government narrative, then people are going to go out and riot. That's basically what happens. And that's the problem that they've got in the UK, basically. So, yeah.
So we have a new question here, and I'm scanning for question marks, guys, because I wouldn't be able to read all the comments. So make sure you leave like 3 question marks so I can find your question easily. Why is every Western country taking in illegals now? All of them. So my suspicion would be you have in the West, kind of behind the scenes, a group of people in charge of all the countries, and probably DC is at the head of that. And, you know, for them, I think it's more about power and money. And these are probably agnostic people, if not atheist. And so, you know, they're going to get it while they can, while they're alive. And if that's the case, you know, if you don't have anything more to look forward to beyond your life, you're not really going to be looking at the long term. And you're not going to recognize religion, and you're not going to recognize cultures. And so mixing everybody up all around the world and causing havoc amongst the different groups is just fine with you, because then they're going to turn to you and say, please help us. Like I said, like a Emperor Palpatine type situation. Jimmy, what do you think?
Yeah, well, again, just to further on your point, I think it is part of somewhat of a longer term plan, because again, there was a point when Britain was one of the most homogenous societies on the planet not too long ago, in the early 1900s. And that's kind of the thing. The British used to unite on things, and that was a danger for the powers that be, of course. Because that's the thing, if you've got a homogenous society that can unite against the powers that be on certain matters, then that is likely to happen. So now you've got pretty much all these different tribes all around the UK that will never unite on anything, and you've also split them into two camps, pretty much two camps: the left, the right. And everyone's got these labels on, basically. Like, someone will have a label on their head. I'm an astral queer gender something or whatever. And as a result of that, again, they put themselves into these small subcategories that just kind of atomize themselves from the wider ancient society. And also, at the same time, isolate themselves from the divine, which is also another point. And that's kind of the thing. Because of the divisions that you see in the society, nobody will agree on anything, which means that ultimately the governments of the West will find this profitable. We might think that it makes no sense to us. We say, no, it makes no sense. It makes perfect sense to them. Perfect sense. If you were a tyrant, this is great. They're all divided. They're all fighting each other. You can get away with murder. You can get involved in all sorts of filthy schemes whilst they're all fighting each other. And then once they're finished, you can then enforce any laws on them and say, yeah, it's because you did that thing, you naughty, naughty citizens. And again, because they all hate each other, none of them will protect each other from the circumstances. So, for instance, when this all ends and they start going after the British native thugs, as Keir Starmer likes to call us, then once they go after the British native thugs with the digital IDs, with the probably travel bans, prison time, with all of these things, do you think anyone's going to stand around for the British natives and say, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, that's an injustice? Of course not, because they've drummed up all this hatred against the people by these other groups, by the out groups. And it's a pity. It's an absolute tragedy to see, because people just will not unite. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think about when I look at this is, because as an American, someone who's 50% genetically British, I always look back to Britain as for like history, because America's so young. And so I'm constantly, thinking about America, thinking about Britain. And, one of the things I'm thinking about with this is, there's property destruction from the British citizens because they're frustrated, as we said. And I'm sympathetic to the blue collar workers that are doing this, because I understand they're mad, but I don't think it's the right thing, because I don't think that this is the answer to destroy the country and destroy property. I understand their emotions, but what I thought about was, oddly enough, the American Revolution, right? So that was something violent, and that seemed to go well. So, I believe it's wrong to be violent, but at the same time, I come from a country that was. And the other thought that I came to is, in the American Revolution, I heard that it was something like only 18% of the colonists that were for splitting off from England. And that sounds small. But it's scary, because what that means is you only need a small amount of committed people in your country to make a change. That could be good, that could be bad, depending upon what you want. And, I see, America and Britain, these are both traditionally, Christian countries, I guess, for lack of a better word. I don't want to offend people, but that's what they are. And I think that they have both become, at best, agnostic countries,
Yes.
or worse. And so, if you have another culture that has another religion, let's say, coming into your country, but they're committed, they believe, and they know who they are, and they know what they want. But you have been told by government and through society and through Hollywood movies, you are a colonist. You're kind of you should shut up. You're a bad guy. You should feel guilty. You might think, what? I guess I am. I guess I should. And then you don't vote, and you don't make change, and we're not alive on this planet for a long time. So if you convince someone to be guilty and to be quiet, you only have to convince them to do that for so long, just a couple of decades, and then their opportunity to be effective on this planet is over. And so, I think that in the short term, I don't know what to do. I think in the long term, though, if you believe in British culture, if there is such a thing, if you're British and you're there, you need to, believe and have confidence, and think about what that means.
Yeah.
It probably means to, I dare say, be religious. I could be wrong. I don't know. What do you think, Jimmy? These are just my raw thoughts on what's going on.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is about belief in God as well. It takes your fear away. Like it takes basically your fear of death away, because if you're an atheist, how grim must it be? How grim must that be? All my life, I'm just going to become soil when I die. Yeah, that's pretty grim. Like it's well, that's kind of the thing. When you have God and you know that you're a spirit, then you know that you're going somewhere after. So your main aim at that point is obviously, so what do I want to do on this planet that I'm going to be proud of when I'm a spirit up in the heavens? That will be your main thoughts from that point forward. And when you're communing with God, God will talk back and he'll send you signs. I've certainly had some myself, and that's kind of the thing, because when you just believe in the materialistic world, you just believe in, okay, well, what's there to believe in apart from collect some more stuff? Collect some more stuff. You can't take it with you, but just collect stuff. And that's kind of the logic. So it's like the only time that it seems, and that's why people are so atomized. I mean, when I was a kid in the UK, all neighbours would talk to each other. These days, not so much. It's a lot rarer for people to just randomly speak to others and neighbours to just go around and lend each other things, But now it's very atomized, and it's like everyone's just locked inside the house because they're scared of what's going on outside. They've got the blinds covered, but they've got all their nice, pretty stuff, and they believe in the stuff. And it's like, that's all there is to believe in. So, yeah, you need God. You need God to give you some higher spiritual purpose. I mean, not just want God, you need God, actually. And I think that holds a society together. And again, it's a little bit like, if you notice throughout history, the most successful societies that were ever growing, that were ever making life happen, were the God-fearing societies, the ones who loved God. And that goes all the way back through ancient history. In fact, it's only in most modern history that people have decided to become agnostic or become atheist. It's very, very recent, because look at all of the societies in the past. People can have their own beliefs, fine. I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. But the way that I do see it is, people have got to think about where they want their society to go. They need to think about the impact of God on society and the impact of people that do things in the name of God in society, because God draws people together. We all get together when we're under God. We don't just start splitting and atomizing because we all love God. And that's kind of the thing.
And we have agnostic and atheist viewers. I'm not trying to be down on that necessarily. I'm just trying to sort through it. And the way it seems to me as a Christian is that if you don't believe, then you're going to operate completely different in the world because you only have a set amount of time. You've got, 60 years or 10 years or whatever, and that's it, and so you're going to operate differently if that's all you've got, versus if you're thinking that you're doing something for, for your ancestry, for your future, for your children, for all time, and for God. One thing I thought of, Jimmy, that I wanted to ask you, because you're from Britain, is there the thing that popped in my head when you guys were sharing about the destruction and the riots and the fear and the culture clash, is the time like in the 80s with like the IRA. It just made me think of that. Are we in a new time like that for Britain, where it's going to be ongoing fear and bad attacks from time to time? What do you think?
Well, it's one of those things where it's never truly going to end, and it's mainly because, again, for as long as, and that's the thing, the government are very good at having their nose in it but keeping their nose out at the same time, paradoxically. So it's sort of like they'll tell you how bad it is and stuff like that, but it seems a little bit agenda driven, because if you look at we've had riots in the past, we've had a number of riots in the past over all sorts of things, and the police are very good at kind of calming it down and having it go back to normal at a certain time. Now, this one's different because Keir Starmer has basically come out against the people that have valid concerns, very, very valid concerns. And he's basically said, yeah, you're all a bunch of thugs. We're going to come down on you with the full leg of the law, or whatever he said. And, that it's that kind of attitude and that kind of hatred toward the British people as a leader of the British people, goodness, that makes you realise, wow. So, the police hates us, the media hates us, the Prime Minister hates us. So really, it just ends up British people against the world. That's the way it is. So when you're backed into a corner, what do? You're going to lash out at some point, and that's kind of the thing. There's no one listening to them. No one cares.
Yeah, I heard him say that, and I was shocked because he's supposed to be the leader of the whole country, and things have just started in a way. And why would you pick a side like that? You want to try and be sympathetic to everyone, and he immediately is against his own citizenry, which I found very strange. So we have another question here. Why is it that Russia and Hungary are not experiencing this? Maybe leadership. What do you think, Jimmy?
Because they don't have reactionary governments. They have proactive governments and go in a direction. So now, in comparison to our government, it's very much reactionary. So they'll just keep the status quo for as long as possible and fill their pockets, with the likes of the WEF and the UN and whatnot. And, they'll try to do as little as possible while get as much out of it as possible, and also push the agenda as prescribed by, say, the World Economic Forum, by the United Nations, and also by the corporations that are also in their back pockets. Okay, so we've got to take that into account first as the fundamentals. So the thing is, now what you find in countries like this is they're more proactive and they actually care about the citizenry. That's a great start. So it seems that now it also comes back to liberalism too, because again, Britain is was a classically liberal society, but now it's a neoliberal society. And basically, it follows everything to its final conclusion. And in fact, I think it's Carl Benjamin that said that when you get leftism and liberalism, they have to kind of agree with each other. So the thing is, of course, when you've got the liberal thinks, okay, everybody should be free to do whatever they want to do, whatever, and we've got to protect so many rights and stuff like that. And then, of course, the left comes along and says, what about this persecuted person's rights? His rights aren't protected. And then they have to follow each other to this foregoing conclusion where, it just becomes, forget the majority. We've got to look after this 1% of the population here and this 3% of the population here, and make sure that they're protected away from those evil people over there, the thugs. And that's the position. Whereas in Russia, or even Hungary for that matter, it's like, no, Russia cares about Russians. And it's as simple as this, a bit like what Sam said. If I was to go against Russia, people would just be like, well, get out. And like, I'd probably get kicked out, So that's the point. It's like you've got a society that the society is a polar opposite. That's why the issues aren't here. And not only that, there's a direction here. Like, there's an actual direction. You see where things are going. Only walk out onto the streets in Moscow and see all of the different infrastructure projects going up and being built. I mean, goodness, like, we've been building HS2 for donkey's years, it seems, at this point, and that's high-speed rail from London to Birmingham to Manchester. They've cancelled half the project, and I think they haven't even got past, the north of London yet. They're not getting anywhere with it. It was supposed to be released, I think, maybe this year or something, to a certain point. It's still not. And I think, to be honest, it's just going to get cancelled. Whereas in Russia, we know that in a few years' time, we're going to have a lovely high-speed rail train that's going to take us 2 hours and 30 minutes from between Moscow and St. Petersburg, if I'm right in saying. But yeah, in a couple of years' time, that'll all be sorted, and we'll be on that. And we'll see that. They've started developing it. Whereas in England, it's like, it's all red tape, it's all bureaucracy, it's all of this sort of stuff. We've got to get paid as much as we can and rinse the taxpayer. But and they still haven't built it, but we still paid for it. But everyone got paid.
So, we all know now your main concern is the British government being corrupt. What about, because again, I'm an outsider, but I do get a lot of British news, probably more than American news, just because they speak English, so I can get international news from there, from a place that's closer to where I live. And the name I hear a lot is Nigel Farage. Is he someone that might be a good thing for Britain in the future? Or could he be prime minister one day? Is he just a clown? Like, you tell me. I'm not saying he is a clown, people. I'm just throwing it out there. Who is this guy? Is he an answer?
So he was originally the leader of the UK Independence Party, and I think he left them after Brexit, and then he started the Reform UK Party. Now, what can I say about him in this day and age? I don't think he's who everybody wants, but he's who the country needs. A little bit like Caesar to the Romans kind of figure, in a way.
Yeah, or Batman or Trump.
Yeah, it's one of those, So that's kind of the thing. Like, we need something different, goodness. And that's kind of the thing with, say, the likes of Farage or something like that. It's like, it's the type of character that is needed to maybe turn things around. But realistically, I think I try to avoid idealism, but at the same time it comes out. But I try to stick to realism. Realistically, is Farage going to get in? And I've got to look at it. From what I can see, no, because they won't let him. In fact, we saw how he was treated. Even, listen to this, right? During the last general election, bearing in mind he wasn't going to get in anyway, the amount of smear pieces, hit pieces they did against him, they threw ice cream at him, one chap threw cement at him. I mean, it was crazy. They were really going after the guy. And as a result, he ended up, well, even though he didn't win, they still take opportunities to constantly hit at him to make sure that enough people hate him and enough people are scared to vote for him. So, and these riots only further exacerbate that, because now, after the riots, the likes of the BBC, ITV, and all of these different mainstream news networks are going to use these riots and say, hey, this is why anyone with a remote conservative thought is basically a far-right thug. Basically, that's how they're going to conflate it. They've done it before, they'll do it again. That's the way it always goes. So, yeah, that's
very interesting. So people who are conservative-leaning in Britain, they might be thinking right now, wow, finally, some change. We're making things happen. But in reality, you think that it's just a big game and it's a big trick and this now gives the government the excuse they need to crack down. And so you think that Nigel Farage might be the best bet of all the people that are known out there, but he'll never get in, right?
I can't see it. Well, you know what? Like, we can all be wrong, can't we? So I'm willing to put my hands up and say, hey, I could be wrong. But I've got to be honest, after, like, bearing in mind, really, the general election, whenever you'd speak to people on the streets, like, and just ask them, you know, who you voting for? Everyone was like, yeah, Reform UK, we're all voting Reform, it seemed, you know. Of course, that can be an echo chamber at times, but at the same time, that's kind of the thing. Like, you looked at the election results, how the seats work. It's kind of, because we've got a first past the post voting system in the UK. For Nigel to get in, firstly, is going to be immensely difficult. In fact, highly unlikely, because Labour and Conservatives have occupied the posts for the longest time. So it doesn't matter how much their vote share goes down. It seems that they're still going to keep pushing past that post and getting in. I mean, I don't know what you'd need to be able to get Reform in. I really don't. It's going to be, would it be next election? Would it be in 20 years' time? I don't know. But it just looks unrealistic to me, really. And the way that the media pile onto the British public to, again, like Sam was saying, make everybody scared of saying anything, then, of course, with everyone just so scared to say anything or do anything, or scared to be called racist, you know, which they keep drilling into people, this Project Fear, then, you know, you are going to have low voter turnout. People are going to be concerned about going to the polls. People are going to be a bit like, oh, what if my relatives find out I voted for Farage? And it's like, you know, there is that kind of social stigma in the society. Because, again, who speaks the loudest? Yeah, it's usually the lefties, the liberals. They will shout and call people racist and scream in people's faces and throw milkshakes at them. They're like the least tolerant people on the planet. But that's what they do. They constantly intimidate anyone that doesn't believe what they believe. And that's the problem. The British people, I think, need to break out of the fear bubble. Just break the bubble and just, don't go to riot. Goodness, seriously, there's a better way to do this. But yeah, I mean, at the same time, it's breaking that fear bubble and just saying, you know what? If you want to call me names because I believe something different to you, then call me names. And God bless you for thinking differently. We need a bit of real diversity on the planet. People that think differently, that's fantastic. That's what we need to do. And just pull ourselves out of this bullying, because they are bullies. And that's why people are falling for it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, Farage, I find myself enjoying listening to his speeches and his rants. But at the same time, I know that, 10 years ago, I thought the same thing about Boris Johnson. They're both like adventurous, rebellious, funny guys. And now, not many people think well of Boris. So, it's kind of like a check, is Farage the right guy or not? But you're saying you don't think he could even get in anyway. So is there anyone on the scene that is kind of like a junior senator, I guess you could say, that you think people should look to, or perhaps, support with likes?
Honestly, I think you're right. I think the best bet is God now. I don't think there are many human beings on the planet that are going to pull us out of this one. Look to God. Look to Jesus Christ. That's what I would say. And that's who I look to at this point in time, perilous times. But in terms of people, the problem is, again, the class that we've currently got in at the moment, they've always been in politics. They've never been of the people. Okay. So again, they are not really of the same ilk, and they don't come from where the people come from. They go to schools such as Eton, it's boarding schools. They all go to the same schools. They all drink in the same bars, and they all work in the same place. And that's kind of the thing. They are the Westminster bubble. And for people to penetrate that bubble, I mean, it would be what we need, really, because again, there's only one Farage, right? And there's only one person that believes this here, one person that believes this here. I think the best way to do it is many people rise up at once. I think that would be the best thing to do, because again, in like they say in America, what is it? United we stand, divided we fall. So
Yes.
again, people do need to start to unite, stand together, be strong, and we need to start standing together, because again, like divided we fall. We can just be flicked over like little dominoes on a table,
Right.
if we're divided. So we've got to join together, guys. That's what I would say.
We have a question on the screen from the audience. I'm scanning through what's left of the comments, guys, to make sure I try and get in as many questions as I can before we end, because Jimmy and I are going to wrap it up here in less than 5 minutes. So Kevin Rose, no relation, said, if you none that I know of, if UK, and I'm pretty sure no relation, sorry guys, if UK colonizing was so bad, then why are they friendly to all past nations they once colonized? Any thoughts on this, Jimmy?
I think with all the colonization sort of stuff, I mean, I think at the moment they have to be friendly, because they're not really in a position to be strong. I mean, if most countries are currently looking at the UK at the moment, I mean, it's not looking very good. I mean, if they can't keep an eye on their own citizenry, they can't keep an eye on the world, can they? Goodness. I mean, what's going on really with what went on with colonization? I mean, there were some positives and there were some negatives, like there was with everything. So I do understand when people say, yeah, it was bad how we went into Africa, in which case I'm inclined to agree. I think that should have never happened. Now, islands like the Falkland Islands, where there was nothing but penguins, I think, oh, cool, we found an island no one cared about. Well, apart from, that's another story. There might be Argentinians on the channel, but anyway.
Another live stream.
Oh, dear. Yeah. Anyway.
2 men in red to talk about the Falkland Islands. Anyway.
Right. But anyway, point being, when that's the case, then it's like, well, history is history at the end of the day. And I think it's important not to keep grudges. And that's the thing. History's happened. Acknowledge that it's happened. And but it's very important to know not so much that history, but also just history more broadly, to understand which direction society is going in. Because, of course, we are currently in a stage at the moment where you could call the US the world's empire. It's the world empire at the present moment in time. And we can even, a lot of people draw comparisons between the Roman Empire in its decadent era and the United States at the moment. And they say, hey, look at this sexual immorality that happened in the Roman era. Could the same be happening, say, in this empire? And I think that's a very interesting question to draw, because we can now look at different parts of history and say, hang on, maybe we shouldn't go down this road. Maybe we should take a different road. But it just seems like they say, what is it that they say? If there's one thing history has taught us, nobody learns from history. That's the thing. So all we can do is just learn it personally and think, what are we going to do about it then?
Right. I mean, for me, if UK colonizing was so bad, why are they so friendly to past countries they colonized? I mean, I think they're friendly partly out of guilt, but I'm not someone who is going to apologize for America or Britain. Yeah, they did bad things, but they also did a lot of good things. And, kill me if you have to, but I think that in general, both Britain and America have done more good things than bad things. And this world is probably, because of Britain, has a lot of things in common that like Britain kind of, through their colonization, kind of made a general standard for the world as far as travel and passports and all that jazz and clothing and everything. And I know a lot of you hate me for saying that, but I'm not going to sit here and feel guilty and apologize for America and Britain. Yeah, they did some bad things, and so have I, and we're all sinners. And I'm not making light of it.
Before, Joseph, because bearing in mind, like I've literally had it before. I've heard these comments before where people will say, oh, you're from England, so you're a colonizer. And it's like, you what? I was born in like, how could I possibly be a colonizer? My families were slave owners or something, apparently.
Hopefully it's just a joke.
Like, bearing in mind, like, you know, of course, if I go back to my grandfather, okay, my grandfather worked in the mines in Wales, you know. He worked there, like he didn't own any slaves, like, you know. So that's kind of the thing. When you see comments like that, I mean, it's just like, it does make you think, hang on, these people really do want to hate us. You know, they're trying to find a reason to hate us. It's like, yeah, there must have been slave owners or something. It's like, you're stupid. I'm just from a regular family. And even if they were, yeah, which they're not, but even if they were, for argument's sake, I'm just a human. I was just born here. Okay. Like, what do you want me to do about it? What you want me to get on my knees and say sorry for what somebody else did? No, I'm not. I'm not doing that. Like that seems like I might as well detach my spine and give you my tailbone while I'm at it. You know.
Very good. Well, Jimmy, I just realized we are already a minute past what I wanted to do, so we're gonna have to wrap it up. But I did put a question on the screen. So, Expat American asked Jimmy if such opinions which you both share are they common in the UK. So I guess what they're wondering is UK full of guys like you and I, like traditional family values guys, you know, I guess right-leaning guys, not so apologetic guys who are intelligent and handsome and understand that corrupt governments are the real problem and not different cultures. Are there guys like this? Is that normal, or are we in the minority?
If people, yes, in fact, it's one of those things, and Sam touched on this earlier, actually, to give credit to Sam. It's sort of like we've got two different kind of conversations that we have. Conversations around the dinner table and just things that you can't say outside. That's what goes on, basically. So there's a lot that we have to avoid saying outside, and it's not just because of the social stigma. It's because if anyone hears it, you lose your job, so you can't pay your bills, so you lose your house, so you can't eat, so you end up in a food bank, and then before you know it, you're on the streets, and someone's trying to sell you some illegal stuff. You know, it's like, well, and that's the way people think. It's like, do I want to end up on the streets and you know, be in that position? So they just keep their mouth zipped, just around the dinner table. Shh, we'll talk about this thing. But yeah, like everybody kind of is in some kind of agreement in that regard. And I think that's where the explosions come from, because for decades and decades now, people have just been told to shut up. Your opinion is not valid. And if it was addressed, we wouldn't be here, would we? You know, but it was never addressed. And so it's.
So you think there's a silent majority? That makes sense.
Silent, yeah. But they are becoming increasingly louder as the days go on, because time is of the essence for them. We've always got to respect now, and it goes the same for every country. You're dealing with someone's ancestral homeland who has a lineage that dates back on that homeland over generation, over generation, over generation. And as a result of all of that time span, people, for instance, have been tilling the lands, tilling the fields, and they have been nurturing that land. They've built that land, and they've kept that land in good condition. And, you know, I can understand the frustration of generations of that happening, because it's divine, it's ancestral, it goes back all the way, thousands of years in some cases, going back to, say, the Celts and all that sort of stuff. And also, yeah, like if you go back far enough, like you'll find like the way that it was all put together by these people, these families that have such ancient lineages there. So when we see people going around the society, damaging it, throwing things on the street, knocking things down and rebuilding their own things and saying, this is my place now, you know, it's not very nice, because if anybody else went to their country and did it, like, they wouldn't put up with that. Nobody in the world would. It seems to be the West that puts up with that. So I think it's about time people reattach their tailbones. It's like, usually I wouldn't even have these conversations, especially publicly. But I mean, it's got to the point now where it's like, you know what? forget it. Like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? I mean, it's just like we're at the point now where it's like if they're gonna hate us, if they want to call us names, they've already called them us in the past. So go on. But yeah, that's where people are at. The names just don't work anymore. You know what? Let's just and that's where we are basically. So
great. Yeah. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much for sharing. Guys, be sure and go to his channel, Unglued Brit. Like I said, I put links in the description for all of our videos, and check out his channel as well. We're two guys, Westerners living in Moscow, Russia, making interesting and exciting and sometimes funny videos. So please, if you enjoyed this show, share it with your friends. Make sure you've clicked like, make sure you subscribe, even if you've been watching for a while, because I hear that some people are losing their subscriptions mysteriously. That sneaky algorithm. And click the box to see what happens next.
Absolutely. And see you later, guys. It's been a pleasure. And Joseph, it's been a pleasure. And for all your other guests as well. So, yeah, guys, take it easy, everybody. Much love.
Thanks, man.